House Bill 562 is the Virginia Human Rights Act. This bill prohibits discrimination in employment based on sexual orientation. The bill defines sexual orientation as a person's actual or perceived heterosexuality, bisexuality, homosexuality, or gender identity or expression. This bill expresses that sexual orientation does not include any person's attraction towards persons with whom sexual contact will be illegal due to the age of parties. The bill also codifies existing prohibited discrimination in public employment based on race, color, religion, national origin, sex, pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions, age, marital status, disability, or status as a veteran. Mr. Chair, committee members, I'm new to this argument, but not new to the issue. Having done a lot of the research, I know that this bill has had a lot of discussion in the past, and I appreciate both sides weighing in on it. I had a lot of good visits with folks on the pro side and the con side, and I know many of you over the years and have talked to you about this issue, and I do appreciate the dialogue that's about ready to happen, and I think Virginia's good for it. In this day and age, bottom line is we need to root out discrimination in all forms. This bill mirrors similar language at the federal level for the Non-Discrimination Employment Act that the Senate passed. Also in research, we have found that there's not a lot of empirical data to support the argument, but we do know it does happen in today's age. I know in the off-season, we're going to be working with some folks at the Department of Labor to understand how they collect their data, because apparently they do not collect data on this. The Virginia Human Rights Act can be empowered by the governor to help work with this data and collect this data, but that doesn't happen today. But I'm here before you to help advance the discussion and hopefully prohibit this type of discrimination here in Virginia.
Thank you, Delegate Villanueva. Delegate Simon, would you like to add to that?
Yes, and I thank Delegate Villanueva for being my tag team partner, and I appreciate the bipartisan nature of this discussion. And I'll make the maybe more conservative argument here, which is I think we owe it to the taxpayers of Virginia to make sure that we're getting the most capable employees, the state employees, that we get the people that are best able to do the job that they've been hired to do without regard to race, national origin, religion, or sexual orientation or gender identity. If we're losing good employees because they're being discriminated against by a supervisor, by an employer, by a gatekeeper, because of their sexual orientation, then we're not getting the most qualified person doing the job. And these are public employees. These are people that are being paid with the people's money. I think that we owe it to them to spend their money wisely and prudently and make sure we get absolutely the best person for the job to carry out the people's business without regard to who they love, what their lifestyle might be. And so I can't think of any good reason we wouldn't protect this class of folks and make sure we're getting the best bang for our tax dollars.
Thank you. Delegate Simon, a quick question. And the Governor McDonald, former governor, he applied this with executive order, is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. Have we had any complaints in our system from a supervisor or an employee of, were there any complaints filed under the old protection?
Mr. Chair, I can answer that question on my earlier statements. We asked for this data. The data is not collected. It's not tabled.
Let me ask you, Delegate Villanueva, are there any current lawsuits that where Virginia violated by this executive order?
There's existing case studies in previous cases, but I'm unaware of any of this that happened this year.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions for the Delegate Peace?
Yeah, delegates. The current governor has reissued the executive order that the chairman referenced. Were there any changes to the new executive order from the old one? Can you speak to that a little bit if I didn't hear you already?
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
delegate piece, I believe it's the same executive order.
Same identical order. And I don't know if the delegates are aware, but there's an advocacy group, Equality Virginia, that encourages all members of the legislature to sign off on an anti-discrimination policy for each of our offices. And if you have not done that, I encourage you to do it like I have, as well as other members. So, thanks.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Bob Mathias from the city of Virginia Beach. We actually had this in our legislative agenda for the last couple of years, actually for a number of years. We really appreciate Delegate Bella's waiver. He used to be a city council person. We have had this policy in Virginia Beach for over 20 years. And as the two delegates very ably said, this basically is the same policy that most Fortune 500 companies have. It makes Virginia more competitive for employees and sends a good message that Virginia is a good place for business.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Joe Vidalich. I represent the Fairfax County Chamber of Commerce. I represent 650 businesses and 500,000 employees. To put it very quickly, we believe that we should have an opening and welcoming Commonwealth. We believe that very strongly. A number of Northern Virginia and businesses throughout the Commonwealth already engage in this policy. This is a good government policy. There is no cost to the state. It makes sure the state is in line with what businesses are doing and make sure that we can recruit the best and brightest. Also remind the committee that a number of executive orders or executive directives have been issued over the years from Governors Warner, Kane, McDonald, and now Governor McAuliffe. This is just codifying that language. We should be able to judge the employees that work for the state based on their qualifications and just that. We support the bill.
Hi, I'm Jordan Rice. I'm here with Equality Virginia. As I was finishing my doctoral work in Michigan and preparing to move back to Virginia, my professors, my colleagues, and my doctors each expressed concern that I would consider moving to a place with no protections for transgender people. Now, each time I sit for an interview, I feel the pressure of my former life with another name, the career as a professor and writer that I built when I was male. And with that past name and past life, the fear of being turned down for a position for which I'm fully qualified simply because I am transgender is present, is real, and is completely valid. I'm here to ask on behalf of every transgender person in this state and for myself, of course, that you pass this workplace non-discrimination bill and provide a way for us to enter the workforce without fear or anxiety of being turned down by prospective employers simply because the struggle to be who we are is oftentimes visible. Please consider this bill with great care. Please support it. Transgender people, as I'm sure you know, have very little protection under the law, almost no support in society. Remember that we do not choose to be transgender, that this is not a lifestyle. Like you, we were born as we are, and like you, we deserve equality under the law. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Damas Boudreau. I represent the Virginia Coalition of Latino Organizations, the Virginia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and we support this bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Brian Turner. I represent the American Association of University Professors. Our concern here is, besides the fundamental justice of it, is the ability to hire top qualified faculty from across the country. And I'm not talking about only faculty who would be specifically in the protected category. All faculty want to work at institutions that protect all points of view, all perspectives, all personal backgrounds. And when hiring committees are asked by faculty of whatever their gender orientation, are there any kind of protections in Virginia, and we have to say no, that puts us at a disadvantage with other states. Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Susan Stinson. I'm an employee at Longwood University in Farmville, Virginia. I'm here as just an individual who is employed by the state to say that, well, a couple of things. It's great to see bipartisan effort to get a bill like this passed, and I commend the delegates for doing that. I'd also like to say that right now in the United States, over half of all Americans live in states where same-sex couples can marry or be in civil unions. Unfortunately, right now, Virginia is not one of those. However, the Attorney General recently said that he believes that Virginia's ban on same-sex union to be unconstitutional, and therefore, if I live in a state where we have laws that are encoded to not validate the marriage that I'm in, then that is a form of discrimination. And I worry, as someone who's employed by the state and has a partner, that should something happen and one of us, she's also employed at Virginia Tech, which is a state agency, but if something should happen to one of us and the other would need the state benefits of the other, why couldn't we have that? Also, if one of us were to get to be pregnant and have a child, I'm certain that we'd like to adopt our own baby. And I believe that in Virginia, we currently do recognize adoption by same-sex couples that come into the state from out of state, yet we don't recognize our own children within the state. And I've grown up here all my life. I'm used to being a Virginia citizen. I live in Prince Edward, so I'm used to laws taking a long time for justice in the state of Virginia to come through and come to fruition. And I hope that you all will lay this before the House and let everyone vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman of the Committee, James Parrish, Quality Virginia. I would like to thank Delegates Simon and Illinois for introducing this bill. We would ask that the committee and the General Assembly join the majority of Virginia's business leaders and the majority of Virginians in protecting all employees in Virginia, including those based on sexual orientation and gender identity or expression. Thank you.
Claire Guthrie-Gustiniaga on behalf of the ACLU of Virginia. We're here to support this bill because it would, for the first time, represent legislative codification of protections against discrimination for all public employees on the basis of age or religion, national origin, race, as gender, pregnancy, childbirth, veteran status, and for the first time, sexual orientation and gender identity. Most people don't realize that state employees currently have no statutory protection against any of those kinds of discrimination because the General Assembly has not chosen to codify the executive orders that governors have introduced since Linwood Holton first did it as Executive Order 1 back when he was governor. And we're in a situation where while the grievance mechanism is available for some of those, it's not available for all of those classifications. It is fundamentally important for you to make this policy statement and to codify it, in part because not codifying it sends a message that you condone what could be unconstitutional discrimination against public employees. And in that circumstance, you're disabling your public officials from being able to implement the laws appropriately. So in addition to all the good reasons and the just reasons why you should do this, you should also do it because it's fundamentally important to protect you from future liability. So I thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Chris Friend, Family Foundation, complicated bill, complicated issue. Appreciate your time. Just wanted to give a couple of reasons and for our opposition for this bill. And the first part I'm doing is a non-lawyer advocate, so Delegate Peace, if I'm wrong in my legal analysis as an attorney, I hope you'll correct me. Usually, the requirements to become a protected status, there are three different aspects: a shared immutable characteristic, economic deprivation, and a history of political powerlessness, and you have to meet all three of those to receive protection. In the case of sexual orientation, obviously a vast dispute over the first, whether or not it's a characteristic that's immutable. Regardless, it's very clear that folks in this group in general have not had a history of economic deprivation, and in fact, studies show are 5 times more likely to make $100,000 a year and often make a higher salary. And also, the group does not have a history of political powerlessness. The actions today by the Attorney General ought to show that there is certainly no lack of political power. Because of these factors, neither Congress nor the United States Supreme Court have recognized sexual orientation as deserving of special protection. Secondly, you mentioned the executive orders. that Governor McAuliffe and others have had. The statistics that we found were that there were only 24 complaints since 1992, none founded, so that's less than 2 per year. Virginia is often described as the best managed state, the best state for business, an attractive state for businesses and others to come here. And finally, the third thing, I think it's important to note that this is in the Human Rights Act, so this does not just apply potentially to state employees, but to the private sector as well. And we come back to our issue of religious liberty. There are a plethora of situations around the country where people of faith simply trying to operate a business, simply trying to practice their faith as they do so, operate under threat of lawsuit or have been sued because they did not want to participate in some type of same-sex marriage or union and have faced serious consequences for that. So for all of those reasons, and I do want to, we would ask you to oppose this, and I do want to say, voting against adding this to the law that has many, many consequences, that does not make you discriminatory. It does not make you discriminatory. Thank you.
The Virginia Assembly of Independent Baptists, Chris clearly brought all the views to bear, and while we hold to these views and values, again, we ask you to continue to help our state do what it's done best insofar as maintaining equality. Thank you.
Good night.
One thing that I just want to make sure that we all recognize here is I heard some comments early on, but we are the best state in America to do business in. We have been for many, many, many years, except for a couple of years when we had a transportation problem. We fixed that transportation problem last year, went right back to #1. So we are the most friendly state in America to do business in. We are the friendliest state in America to raise a family in. So I just wanted to add some clarity to that, as far as Virginia's concerned, we're a very, very welcoming state to businesses and families.
Delegate Ramadan.
Mr. Chairman, another important and very sensitive subject as an immigrant who is very, very sensitive to any form of discrimination. Today there is no room for any form of discrimination to any class of citizens in our Commonwealth, nor should there be ever any form of discrimination. With that said, we cannot again keep sectioning off one section after another, and thus I move to gently lay this bill on the table.
Is there a second? Properly seconded. All in favor of laying on the table House Bill 562, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. The ayes have it. Thank you, delegates, and thank everyone for coming.
Thank you for your time.